Welcome back, everyone. After a very exciting week 7, we are rapidly closing in on the midway point to the season. So, we have a lot to talk about, so I'm not going to take too much time here. Kate and I are here to start off by breaking down our top 3 plays of the week. Then we'll recap last week's shenanigans. We will make our predictions for week 8, and then we will end the show with our segment of the week, but segment of, I guess, the month, since we're on a rotation here. So without further ado, welcome to K&A Football. All right, before we get started here, first off, absolute compliments to Debbie on that one. That is if you're just listening, you obviously have no idea what we're talking about because everything sounded the exact same as it's always sounded. But if you're watching on YouTube, you will notice that the intro is completely different. Obviously, we reshot all of that, so that's the old intro was about a year and a half, 2 years old at this point. So it was kind of rough looking. So shout out to Debbie for making that one happen. And then the other thing is obviously the sign there above Caden's right shoulder is a massive, massive upgrade as well. All right, there it is in its full view.
I think, shout out to Debbie, like you said, about the intro. It looked really good. That was our first time seeing it. And yeah, the sign that we kind of previewed last week is here in its full force. Unfortunately, Austin is not sitting across from me at the desk. We did not raise the $10 that we were looking for Austin to drop out of college. He is still, unfortunately, at college right now. But yeah, we're excited. I'm excited to be filming the studio, to be filming at the studio. I think it's a lot better quality for us to do it in the studio compared to our makeshift studio in my bedroom, and also for the viewing experience. I think it looks a lot nicer. So shout out to Debbie for getting all of this set up for sure.
Yeah, Debbie is deserving a lot of praise at the moment for all of the stuff that he's pulling off behind the scenes. All right, so without further ado, let's get this episode started. First up for our top 3 plays of the week. It's an okay play. There weren't really too many crazy plays this week, but it's a long run. Doesn't end in a touchdown, so that's why we're going to put it in the 3 spot instead of anything higher. But it is, of course, the 81-yard Derrick Henry run to put the game on ice. So, Debbie, do we want to go ahead and roll that one? So here we go. Game is kind of winding down here. Ravens need to just one more punch to get this thing going, and Derrick Henry, in the shadow of his own end zone, takes this thing 81 yards. Honestly, the top play of this might be the Buccaneers cornerback coming in from across the field. He was at the line of scrimmage when this play started, and he ran 81 yards except at an angle in order to cut off Derrick Henry and stop the touchdown. So that might honestly be the highlight of this play instead of Derrick Henry's run.
Yeah, we saw something similar from Derrick Henry just a couple of weeks ago. First play of the game for the Ravens against the Bills was an 87-yard Derrick Henry touchdown run, and now we saw an 81-yard run here. Derrick Henry, we know he has power, but right now he's showing a lot of his speed these last couple of weeks. And I know he didn't score. I know he said after the game, "I'm slow. I need to score that," and he was mad at himself. But when you're that big, running that speed, I don't think you can be disappointed at all with that.
For sure. All right, the next play we have here is another long run, but it does get a spot up because it did result in a touchdown. And we're seeing at least in my mind, a consistent theme here. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago we had this is known as a 44-yard touchdown run by Kyler Murray, and I'm pretty sure we had a 44-yard touchdown run by Kyler Murray just 2 or 3 weeks ago that we put on the top 3 plays of the week here. Instead, we didn't roll that one. All right, similar situation as the previous one. On the positive side, the 50 drops back, and then no receivers, takes off, and you can see there he just starts celebrating a good while out yet, but obviously he knew he was going to score. There was no one anywhere near him at all, so he goes ahead and takes that one for a 44-yard touchdown run.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of what we've seen a lot of out of Kyler Murray these last couple of weeks is he's breaking long touchdown runs, and that's a big part of his game, and that's part of the reason he was drafted number 1 overall back 2018, 2019, whenever that.
18, yeah.
18, yeah. And so, I mean, I'm not even going to lie to you, Austin. I saw a total of 0 plays out of that game because the NFL decides that they want to put that game on NFL Plus, and nobody should have to pay for NFL, or not NFL Plus, I'm sorry, ESPN Plus, and nobody should have to pay for ESPN Plus. So I didn't watch it. So, but yeah, I did see that play. Good play by Kyler Murray.
Yeah. All right, and then our number 1 play of the week is going to be out of London. It is a 97-yard punt return for a touchdown by Parker Washington. Never heard of that man in my life, but he scored a touchdown in this game. So here we go. New England is punting from their own 30 or so. Backs him up, takes off. I don't know why he didn't let that go into the end zone for a touchback, but clearly it was the right call. He goes ahead and takes this one 97 yards to the house. The Jaguars were already up, but this obviously opened the gates a little bit more for them, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that was important later.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't see punt returns very much, so that was definitely a fun play. It didn't have to do too much, just kind of was a run straight, break free, but still a great play nonetheless.
All right, so that does it for our plays of the week. Let's go ahead and jump into our recap of this week. So we'll kick things off. You'll remember if you watched the episode last week that while Kadin and I were recording in studio together, we had to do that on a Thursday night, and that meant that the game was happening as we were recording, and I had picked the Saints in that game, so we were kind of following it a little bit as we went. Kadin picked the Broncos, and clearly the Broncos was the right choice because they wound up walloping the Saints 33-10.
Yeah, this game, we talked about this game while it was going on because we didn't film last week's until Thursday, and we didn't end up starting, I don't think, until 8:15. So this game had already started. And so by the time we had picked these games, we had already made our picks, so there was no changing it. But I think at the time it was only like 6-0, if I remember correctly. So it was a very low scoring, like just muck it up game. Well, the Broncos, like you said, end up running away with this one. You can't expect the Saints to do anything in this. They had Spencer Rattler at QB with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed and Taysom Hill all out. But at the same time, I don't think anyone expected this domination out of Denver. Bo Nix didn't play an amazing game by any means. He was missing many, many throws. He missed a lot of wide open receivers. But he did kind of what he had to do. He let his defense carry. For the most part, they had a defensive touchdown, and Javonte Williams had 2 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, just kind of what we expected, but maybe not to the degree of domination that we expected.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, neither offense was doing much of anything. The story of this game was for sure the Broncos defense. If you had them in fantasy this week, congratulations. They scored anywhere from 20 to 22 points from you, depending on what app you were using. But like you said, they scored 33 points in this game, but Bo Nix only had 164 passing yards. He only completed 61% of his passing. And you're like, okay, well then they must have run all over this game. No, they only had their leading rusher only had 88 yards on 14 attempts. Like that's a lot of attempts for 88 yards, 2 touchdowns, which like just looking at the box score, that tells me that the defense is causing turnovers, getting you really, really close to the end zone, and then you're just punching it in because you don't trust your guy to throw it. And then obviously, if we're talking about defense, obviously the Saints are going to do well. Spencer Rattler only had 172 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Their leading rusher only had 36 yards. It was just a bad game overall.
Yeah. I mean, the Saints might be a little bit in trouble if they don't get their players healthy soon, because if this is what we continue to see out of them, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that game and really this next one don't deserve that much time, so we're going to move on. So the next one here is the Patriots and Jaguars. The Jaguars stay in London from the week before. They have 2 London games. And, you know, we're talking a little bit like, oh, man, of the coaches that are on the hot seat, like Doug Peterson, you know, like he has been struggling. He needs to step it up. And I think he heard that and got a win a couple weeks ago. And I don't know, the London Jaguars is real. You know, they need to stay in London always. They always need to play there. 32-16 final score is ridiculous.
Yeah. I think that definitely has something to say with the Jags, but I'm not going to put too much into this because the Jaguars played back-to-back weeks in London. They played obviously last week against the Bears and got decimated. Looked like the normal Jaguars, and then they stayed in London. They didn't have to deal with jet lag. They didn't have to deal with long travel across to another country. They didn't have to worry about any of that. They just got to have pretty much a normal practice week going into the game. While New England, on the other hand, they had to have a practice and then leave early, have that jet lag, have that different country travel, and then go and jump into a game against a team who didn't have to deal with any of that. So I thought this wasn't much of a thought at all that Jacksonville should come out and win this game, and they did. And they played like a team who didn't have to deal with any of that extra stuff that New England was going through.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that is obviously a factor that you have to think about. So we'll see when they come home, like if this is momentum that they're going to carry into upcoming weeks, or if this is just based on the fact that they didn't have to do the travel that they performed so well.
Yeah, one bright spot about this game I do want to talk about is Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie wide receiver for the Jaguars. We've talked about him briefly before on other episodes, but he is, I think it's very safe to say that he has officially come into his own as a dominant rookie wide receiver. He's not Jamar Chase rookie wide receiver level by any means, but he's good, and he's out here dominating against other teams' number one corner. He's getting the looks as a rookie. He's getting the number one corner from the other team put against him as a rookie, and he continues to dominate. And doing all this as a rookie, I'm very excited to see Brian Thomas Jr. in his career and then the next couple of seasons and the rest of this season. He's looking very good and very dominant.
Yeah. All right, the next game that we're going to talk about here is the Seahawks and Falcons. Yet another blowout game. I mean, how do we get 3 in a row like this, really? Seahawks 34, Falcons 14. I mean, Seahawks did what they had to do. They didn't turn the ball over. Geno Smith had a good game on the Falcons side of the ball. Like Kirk Cousins, he threw 2 interceptions, so that's really what set him apart in this game. Had 232 yards. Bijan Robinson had over 100 yards. So I don't really know what happened here. The Falcons need to figure things out because they were supposed to be a contender heading into this season, and they're on the struggle bus at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Seahawks kind of righted the ship because they were on a 3-game losing streak, while Atlanta was on a 3-game winning streak, and so both teams just flipped the script this week. Like you said, Kirk Cousins, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovered by Seattle that was returned for a touchdown. That really was just the icing on the cake. Geno Smith had a really good game. He's had a very good season up to this point. I know he missed some throws against San Francisco last Thursday, but aside from that, he hasn't looked bad. And I'm not sitting here praising the Seahawks because it's no secret that Austin and I aren't the highest on the Seahawks. But it is something to pay attention to that Geno Smith and this offense is playing very well. Kenneth Walker has came back and he looks amazing after his injury. Their defense is playing lights out. I mean, this isn't a bad Falcons offense at all. But yeah, I mean, definitely surprising. I know we both picked the Falcons in this game. We expected it to at least be close, not lose by 20 points. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, who knew that this was going to happen? Look for the Falcons to bounce back next week. They really, really need to. And the Seahawks obviously need to bring this momentum into the upcoming weeks as well as the season comes to its midway point. All right, let's go 4 for 4 on blowouts. Why don't we? We'll go to Titans-Bills. Titans lose to the Bills 10-34. Pretty rough. Will Levis not playing in this game. He got hurt. So Mason Rudolph gets the nod. He went 215 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Tony Pollard continues to do absolutely nothing. On the Bills side of the ball, fantastic time over there. Josh Allen went 323 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not too much action on the ground for them, but that's okay when you're getting it done through the air.
yeah. And one of the more exciting parts of this game, Amari Cooper, his first catch as a Buffalo Bill was a touchdown. And it was kind of a cool play because obviously he just got there on Thursday, Wednesday, whatever day he got there. So he's very new to this offense, doesn't know all the plays in the scheme. As they're lining up to run the play, rookie wide receiver Keon Coleman kind of points to Amari Cooper and says you're going to go there. You're going to run this route, which is hilarious. And he runs that route, and Josh Allen finds him for the touchdown. So, I mean, obviously as time goes on, he's going to get more and more familiar with the offense. But I think that was a crucial part to, I mean, not this week. They would have won this week without Amari Cooper. But as the season goes on, that was a massive trade for them, and it's showing dividends already. And I mean, yeah, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go out and dominate the Titans like this. There's not too much to look into on either side of the ball on this one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we kind of all expected this, even if the Titans would have had Will Levis. Probably wouldn't have been too much of a different story here. And then we'll hold off on talking about the Titans because it doesn't really concern them as much. So we'll wait just a couple of games until we talk about their news. The next game that we're going to cover here is the Browns and Bengals. Okay, so a couple of things in this game. One, the Browns defense is playing really, really well. They're playing good football up until this point. They held Joe Burrow in this high-powered offense to 181 yards through the air. That's pretty good. Held their leading rusher to 44 yards on the ground. That's not bad. You'll see the Bengals scored 3 touchdowns in this game. Did they score? No, they did. So they scored 2 through the air in this game, and 1 was a kickoff return for a touchdown to open the game. So that was unfortunate. Killed the momentum a little bit. But the Browns defense is playing really, really well. The bigger part to this game, though, is Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles. It's unfortunate. You don't really wish that on anyone. It was very clear that he was in a lot of pain after the play happened. It was very, very emotional because he knows that. I mean, he knew his season was done, and who knows? He knows that he hasn't been playing very well over the last couple of years. Obviously, the Browns still owe him a lot of money, so we're probably going to have to play him regardless. But he's not the player that he once was. This could be the nail in the coffin to his career. So then we get Dorian Thompson-Robinson coming out because Jameis Winston was downgraded to the QB3 because he was suffering with a little bit of a nagging injury, so he didn't get the nod for the QB2 spot. So Dorian Thompson-Robinson comes in as the quarterback number 3. We immediately score with him. Nick Chubb gets his touchdown after a long-awaited 390-something days in the making. Comes out, scores a touchdown, big moment. It was a little overshadowed by the fact that Watson got hurt, but still really, really big, really cool to see him come out and be able to play first off, but score a touchdown for sure. So obviously the storylines heading into the next week here are the Browns will be starting famous Jameis for at least this next game. They signed Bailey Zappi for the QB3 spot, so brought him over. Nick Chubb needs to continue to remain healthy as we figure out what we do at the quarterback spot, and then the defense needs to kind of carry the team through the rest of the year because even though any quarterback is probably an upgrade from Deshaun Watson at this point, it's still worth noting that you are dealing with a backup quarterback as your starter for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. And like you were talking about way earlier, I think this might be the end of the career for Deshaun, unfortunately. Like you said, he hasn't been playing well the last couple of seasons. Every team has seen that. And the Browns, they owe him all this money, but by the time he's back late next season, most likely, maybe beginning of next season, do the Browns even want to, like, I know they owe him that money, but at that point they owe him the money regardless. And he's going to be a shell of what he is right now.
Yeah.
And that's scary because look at how bad he's already been this year. And if he's a shell of that, he's going to be, I can't even put into words how bad. And I think teams know that. Like you're not going to come out and be the same player you were off of an Achilles injury. We've seen that. And you were already one of arguably the worst quarterback so far this season, and then you're going to come off of an Achilles injury and expect to not only get back to that form, but somehow manage to get better. I don't think that's going to happen, and I think teams know that, and unfortunately, I think his career might be done. So,
yeah, and there is some bright spots for the Browns in terms of the money they owe Deshaun. We had insured $13.9 million of his contract for this year. So I guess we had taken a gamble that he was going to get hurt or suspended or something. And so him getting hurt means that we get $13.9 million of that money back, which is really, really big because the Browns for this year are currently, I think, $3 or $4 million over the cap space. So they need to just find ways to save money, restructure contracts, everything like that. So that's really big. And then before we move on from this game, give the Bengals their credit as well. They obviously got the win here against a tough Browns defense. And let it be known, the Bengals are crawling their way back here. You'll remember at the beginning of the year, we were like, hey, don't worry about the Bengals yet. I know that they lost some games early that were bad. Then they lost some good games in the middle where you're like, okay, it's a good game, but they lost. Now they're sitting at 3-4, so they're working their way back here. Like we said, midway point of the season, they're probably going to be sitting at a 500 record, and then they'll take off in the latter part. So K&A is right yet again.
one of the many takes.
One of the many times that we've been right.
Yeah.
All right, now that we have gotten through some of the worst games of the week, let's get to a fantastic game. The Texans and Packers. Two young quarterbacks working their way up the ranks here. Jordan Love obviously gets the second year start. CJ Stroud, his second year starting as well. This game finishes 22 Texans, 24 Green Bay, and they win on a walk-off field goal. Kadin, what are your takeaways from this game?
Yep. CJ Stroud continues to struggle. Coming off of last season, obviously like a historic rookie season from a quarterback. People were like, wow, this is a top 3, top 2 QB in the NFL. And then he's kind of I mean, he's not terrible. He's a good quarterback, but he hasn't looked like that so far this season. He hasn't played to the level that people have expected him to play coming off of last season. Even people have expected him to take a jump, an MVP jump. But he hasn't done that, and we saw that once again in this game. Obviously, they're losing. They're without Nico Collins, but they still have Tank Dell. They still have Stephon Diggs. Joe Mixon has been amazing. He's been one of the best players of their team so far. And the Packers they have so many weapons because you can throw the ball to, some days it's going to be a Jaden Reed game, and some days it's going to be a Christian Watson game. Some days it's going to be a Dontavian Wicks, and sometimes it's going to be Romeo Dobbs. So whichever one of the four I haven't named. Like, they have so many options there. And then they got Tucker Kraft at tight end, who's amazing. They got Josh Jacobs, who's a solid running back, and their defense is great. And Jordan Love is a good quarterback. I mean, he's a better Jameis Winston in the fact of he's not afraid to throw it into triple coverage if he thinks that his guy has a chance. And for the Packers right now, that's what they need. And he's letting his receivers make chances at the plays, and he's making good throws. And the Packers are rolling, and they're a lot of fun to watch. And they have a kicker now because their kicker 2 weeks ago would not have kicked a game-winning field goal like that.
Yeah. So obviously the Texans offense on the struggle bus, I think you may have alluded to it, but CJ Stroud only threw for 86 yards in this game. So I know that a lot of people around the world had CJ Stroud as a fantasy quarterback for this week. I know my roommate was one of them, and I think he scored a whopping 5 points this week. So obviously fantasy is not everything. Winning games is everything when it comes to the NFL, but it stings a little bit because, like you said, he's supposed to be this really good quarterback, and he is most of the time. Like, he's had a lot of great games this year. Just this one wasn't his day, and the Packers defense really, really stepped up here.
Yeah.
All right, the next game is All right,
let's not spend any more than 30 seconds.
I will tell you exactly the box scores, and then we will try to get out of this one. All right, so we have the Dolphins and Colts. Dolphins lose 10-16. We are starting, drumroll please, who are we starting today? Pro Bowl quarterback Tyler Huntley, who threw for 87 whole yards. Wow, that's really good. Yeah, not really good at all. All right, we have Anthony Richardson. He's back again. So here we go. Anthony Richardson back for his second week from injury. He goes for 129 passing yards. Not good at all. He was also the leading rusher with 56 whole yards. So this was a really, really terrible game. The Colts still somehow pulled off a victory. I can't help but wonder how much more they would have won by if they started Joe Flacco instead of Anthony Richardson. But that's not a question I get to ask because, of course, we're going to be starting Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. Tyler Huntley did get hurt in this game. Tim Boyle played a lot of the game because Tyler Huntley left with an injury. But, Richardson, his first game back from injury, actually, but didn't play very well. Not much to say. I think the storyline of this game is Tua's coming back next week, which is big because the Dolphins need him clearly. I mean, Colts defense is terrible, and you're putting out 10 points with that dynamic of an offense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm for sure. I have Tyreek Hill in at least one of my leagues. And if you watched our reel from last week, you'll know that you should make a move for Tyreek Hill before Tua officially comes back because he will be much more productive than the rotunda of Dolphins quarterbacks have been these last couple of weeks. But obviously another storyline, and then we'll try to get out of this game quickly, is Tua was asked in a press conference this week, hey, are you going to wear the Guardian cap, which is obviously that little extra space of protection that some players are opting to wear because the NFL is allowing them to do that now. So you get some notable players from around the league that are wearing that just because it helps with concussions and other head injuries like that. And Tua said that, no, he will not be wearing it. And they said, why not? And he said, personal choice, which is fair. Like, it is a personal choice, but it's a stupid one. Like, of all the people in the league who need to wear that, it is Tua that needs to be wearing that Guardian cap. And I understand the optics. You don't want to come out wearing the Guardian cap because then you're kind of admitting to everyone, oh, yeah, my head is fragile. but everyone knows it anyways. Like, just wear the Guardian cap, suck up the pride, don't die before you're 30. Put on the Guardian cap.
Yeah.
All right. I think we had a comment here from Anderson. DTR is the future of the Browns. He could be. I mean, he's really,
No.
really raw. He's really raw. It's his second year in the league. He hasn't had a lot of starting opportunities. He's actually had no starting opportunities. So at the moment, no, he is not going to be our guy that fixes the issue. The Browns are really happy with him. I mean, he's beat out a couple of other guys for these jobs, for the QB2 spot last year, for the QB3 spot. This year, we obviously brought in Jameis Winston to fill the QB2 spot, so of course he was going to go 3. But he's performed mildly okay. He's just really raw, really inexperienced. So we'll see as time goes on. But if we can keep him to a low contract, he could be very valuable in the future.
Yeah.
All right. Now this, like, if we had, like, honestly, from here on out, we need to have a little, I don't know, sound, a little something that goes on that for the game that we decide is the game of the year. And this one is the game of the year. We have the Lions and Vikings. The Vikings come into this game undefeated, trying to keep that streak alive. We all knew that was going to be a tough one against the Lions. They do fall their first loss, 31-29, but it was an absolute thriller, an absolute treat to get to tune into.
It was. And then it started out Vikings domination. They turn the ball over, get a turnover on downs early in the game, score a 34-yard touchdown, then go ahead and get a field goal. They're up 10-0 early. Then the Lions go ahead. They go up 14-10, and then it's just back and forth, big lead to big lead. The Lions go up, I believe, 27-10.
Yeah.
On the Vikings, and the Vikings storm all the way back, comes down about 4 minutes to go. David Montgomery fumbles the football, which was returned for a touchdown by the Vikings to take the lead. And at that point, everyone's like, wow, like we know the Vikings defense is good, but they might have just single-handedly won them this game. And Lions get the ball. They take their time. They drive down. They got a punt. Comes back to the Vikings, and they hold them to a 3-and-out, which was so clutch because without that, the Lions would have no time on their final drive. Lions do obviously have time. They drive down now and set up for a game-winning field goal, and of course he drains it. So Lions win by 2, like you said. Potential game of the year. Great game. I still think that the Falcons and Bucks Thursday night football game was the game of the year to this point, but this one was definitely up there.
Yeah, the Vikings always seem to find themselves in a situation.
They do.
Where
They're fun team. They're in fun games.
Yeah, and honestly, up until this point, it has been just because they had such a high-powered offense with such a terrible defense that it's like, of course, the Vikings are in these tight games that are high-scoring because the other team's dropping 80 on their head, but the Vikings can score however they want. Now the Vikings are a fun team because they have a crazy good offense and a crazy good defense. Little bit of the rumor mill here, and then we can move on from this game. There was some discussion I heard throughout this week that the Vikings were looking to trade for Matthew Stafford, looking to bring him in for kind of like a trade that we saw with the Vikings, or not the Vikings, the Lions and Rams a couple years ago.
Who was considering that?
The Vikings. There was talks that the Vikings were considering trading for Matthew Stafford, giving away Sam Darnold because they thought that Matthew Stafford could go win them a Super Bowl. You didn't see any of this?
No, they're 5-1.
Yeah,
6-1.
I saw it on a number of sources. I mean, to be fair, none of them turned out to be credible because Matthew Stafford came out today and said, absolutely not, I will not be going anywhere. Shut it down real quick. So he hasn't even heard any talks like that. But I saw it all over the internet all of this week.
You're right. What in the world? I didn't hear any of that. That would make no sense to me at all.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me either, which makes sense why Matthew Stafford shut it down real quick. All right. Next game that we'll discuss here is
Not
the
very long.
Eagles and Giants. I'll tell you the score and then we'll move on. The Eagles won this one 28-3.
Yep. I mean, AJ Brown had a good game. Jalen Hurts had a good game. Oh, here we go. Saquon Barkley had a career game, 13 yards away from his career high, and going against the Giants at New York, at MetLife, where I guess not New York, then New Jersey, but at MetLife, where he obviously played. He was booed, as we all expected, and he came out here and just dominated and showed the Giants what they're missing out on. So I was happy to see that. It was cool to see.
Yeah. And obviously at the end of the game, all the reporters were looking for him to be like, ha, Giants, this is what you missed out on. And we all kind of knew that. But class act from Saquon to not say anything about that. Just say, hey, I'm just out here to play football. I'm not going to, comment on the Giants or anything like that. So I like to see that. Just, it's classy. You don't need to drag anyone about anything like that. All right. Next game that we have here is the Raiders and Rams. Aiden O'Connell is not playing in this game because
He got injured.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the comment that came up on the screen here. We'll get to that in 1 second. Yeah, he got injured, so Gardner Minshew gets the nod again. I really don't know how Gardner Minshew comes out here with any confidence whatsoever after getting benched for Aiden O'Connell, and then they need to turn to him just a handful of weeks later because Aiden O'Connell gets hurt. Like, I don't know how you come out there with any confidence. Like, that the organization doesn't believe in you, and you have to come fight for them now. So, but he does a good job. I mean, he does as well as he can. He only puts up 150 yards through the air, throws 3 interceptions. So if that's as good as you can, you're for sure not winning your starting job back, and I don't blame him. No confidence at all. And then on the Rams side, Matthew Stafford did not have a fantastic game either, 154 yards and an interception. So it's really not a great game, but the Rams end up winning 20-15.
Yeah. And the Rams should be getting Cooper Kupp back this week. And not too long, they'll be getting Puka Nacua back. So they're not going to be a playoff team. Nobody's saying that. But they are going to be more competitive, and they are going to be winning games. And, I mean, yeah, that's what you want to see. And when they're clicking, they're a very fun offense to watch. Nobody's disagreeing with that.
Yeah. Speaking of the Rams real quick, Debbie, you want to throw that comment back up here so we can give props to the comments that get said here. Mark Stowers, I hope I pronounced that right. Whoops, don't repeat the Stafford rumors. No chance. Well, of course it's no chance. Like, Stafford isn't going anywhere, but that's why they're rumors. That's what makes it fun. People like spreading rumors because it stirs controversy. All right, next game we have is the Panthers and Commanders. Kadin, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah. It's kind of what we all expected. Commanders, Debbie's laughing, but it's true. 40-7, Commanders win. However, Jaden Daniels barely played more than a drive in this game because Jaden Daniels left very early in this game with a rib injury and didn't return. Nobody really knows how severe it is. We're going to find out on Friday. But I don't think it's that important that he didn't play. I think that if it was a closer game and he didn't come in, it would have been a worry. But the fact that they knew they were going to win this game by whatever they wanted to win it by is a reason of why they didn't put him back in. Like, there's no reason to put a guy back in when you're winning 30-0 at the time. And so they kept Marcus Mariota in the game, and he had a very good game. He looked like Oregon Marcus Mariota. Granted, you're playing against, I can't even say Walmart employees. That would be disrespectful to Walmart employees. I don't know. What would the Panthers defense be considered, Austin, in your opinion?
Let's go. I don't want to drag them because I'm personally a fan, but they do have a reputation. So I'm going to go with 2 a.m. Taco Bell employees. That's what I'm going to go with.
You're a fan of 2 a.m. Taco Bell?
Yeah, you're not?
No,
that's like
I
the
wouldn't
best
say I'm
time
a fan.
to eat Taco
I
Bell.
wouldn't say I'm a fan of any time of the day Taco Bell, but
no, I'm
maybe
telling
that's
you,
just
like 6 hours after the sun goes down, Taco Bell hits so different.
All right. Well, I'm going with the 2 a.m. Taco Bell employees Panthers defense. That makes total sense. But yeah, Marcus Mariota just diced them up. They could run on him. They could pass on him. Andy Dalton played terrible, threw a pick six, and we got to see Bryce Young again in this game at the very end because they were dominating. And we're actually going to see Bryce Young for an entire game next Sunday. Andy Dalton was in a car crash yesterday with his family. Everybody is okay, but they did announce today that Bryce Young is going to be the starter this week due to a thumb injury that Andy Dalton has. I don't know if that thumb injury was sustained in the game. I don't know if it was sustained through the crash.
I think I saw it was. I think I saw it was because of the crash.
It was because of the crash. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was just because he sucks and they needed an excuse. So you're going to turn back to your other QB who has also sucked. But I think for the Panthers, it makes sense to start Bryce Young because you know you're not going anywhere. You're not going to win games with Andy Dalton, but you know that Andy Dalton's not the future. You know you have 1 year out of Andy Dalton.
Right.
You could see what you have in Bryce Young. If he continues to just be the Bryce Young that we saw at the beginning of this season and all of last season, then you're done. He's done. Get rid of him. It's over. But if he shows flashes, then you have something. So why not play the young guy? You're going to lose regardless and just see what you have in him. And I think it makes total sense. So it's going to be interesting. They play Denver this week, so I'm not expecting more than 10 yards of offense. But yeah, good game by the Commanders, kind of what we expected.
There's a little update here. It says that he said that the airbags reportedly went off and that the thumb was sprained in the car accident. So, update.
Well, there we go. So, yeah, injury sustained from the car accident then.
I think Bryce Young was driving the other car and was like, I need to take out Andy Dalton. I need my starting spot back. So yeah.
That's the part of the story they didn't tell us. It was actually Jake Tepper driving the other car because he hates his team.
David Tepper.
David, sorry. Messed up his name. He's so irrelevant, I don't even care. All right. It's enough time on this game. All right. Next game we have Chiefs, 49ers. The Chiefs, despite Patrick Mahomes not having a very great year whatsoever, they go ahead and win this game 28-18. And, you know, I didn't watch too much of this game, so I can't comment too much. It's okay, and I'll let you get this in a second. But so far, the Chiefs are the only undefeated team in the NFL now. So
that's what I was gonna give the applause. I was gonna say this was one of the tougher games remaining on the schedule, and they seemingly got through pretty easily. Brock Purdy had a terrible game. Not much to say about it. But on the other side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes, he has more interceptions this season than touchdowns. But they're playing well enough football. It's like they can do whatever they want, but they're going to find a way to win. And you know the Chiefs are always going to find a way to win. But the 49ers is who I want to talk about right now. Their injuries are almost unovercomable. I just made a word, Austin. Cry about it, I know. But their injuries are almost unovercomable because they got
yeah, just
obviously
double down. Say it again. Go for three.
No, it'll probably come up again in this little sentence. But they got Christian McCaffrey. We obviously know superstar running back. He's injured. Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL and MCL in this game. He's out for the season. Obviously. Great receiver, out for the season. He hasn't performed up until now anyway, but out for the season. Deebo Samuel was hospitalized due to pneumonia. Didn't play in this game. Did George Kittle get injured? I don't recall, but
I don't think he did.
Hufanga, the safety, injured. Dre Greenlaw, he's been out all season. Their entire team is just decimated right now. And I have never been one to be a big Brock Purdy fan, and that's not a secret. And I've been an advocate of I'm a fan of Brock Purdy, the dude. I think he's a great guy, but I don't think he's a great quarterback, great football player. And we've seen him kind of fall back down to earth without all of his weapons and all of his superstar players. And to a degree, I'm like, yes, that's very like my point has been proven, which is very true. He's clearly not a superstar quarterback. He's not playing good at all right now without every single one of his elite weapons. But at the exact same time, he is losing a lot of guys due to injury. So I got to put a little bit on that. But 49ers have got to be a little bit worried because of how many injuries they have right now. It is getting very concerning. And if they want to make a deep playoff run and a Super Bowl push like they all expect to, they need to get healthy and they need to figure out how to start winning games in spite of all of these injuries because they are overcomable.
It shows that George Kittle does have some type of injury. They're not certain why. I think I saw something about a leg sprain of some sort, but
that's what I thought.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like you said, the 49ers, I mean, they're kind of all in for this season. I mean, they've been
all in. Yeah.
They've been kind of all in for the last couple of seasons where you're like, oh my gosh, how do they still have money left over? And I'm not going to lie, like they do have a lot of money left over somehow. But it's like, some of these guys are reaching the end of some of their contracts. I mean, they had just had to re-sign Brandon Ayuk and extend him. And well, we saw how that went. Now he's hurt, obviously wishing him a speedy recovery, but I mean, it didn't last very long. And some of these other guys need to get healthy quick as well. And I think you made the point the other week that the 49ers team doctor, like he needs fired. Whoever is immediately,
big time.
Like
big
the
time.
fact that every one of their guys is hurt, and the fact that
their kicker is injured.
That's
Jake
rough.
Moody is injured.
That's really bad. Yeah, so they need to figure that out. And like, I'm not dogging on anyone who gets pneumonia, but who gets pneumonia anymore?
That's crazy.
No,
you're
Deebo
Samuel, man, for getting
No,
pneumonia.
Deebo Samuel.
Oh, you're very much.
Deebo Samuel
That's like saying before you say something like so offensive, like before you. What's an example? Like if someone's hair looks so bad, like they got a haircut and it just looks terrible, and they're like, dude, what do you think of my new haircut? And they're like, bro, like, no offense, but that looks terrible. Like you can say all you want. Oh, I don't take any offense to this. Like I don't mean any offense, but this. That's like you saying, hey, I'm not to dog on this guy for getting pneumonia, but how did you get pneumonia? That's so sad. Like that is literally what you did. So
he's like 27 years old, if that, and gets hospitalized with pneumonia. Like that's an impressive feat. That's on the team doctor, if we're being real here. Like get some vitamin C in that building. All right. Okay, we can't move on quite yet. Big news. The Chiefs are acquiring DeAndre Hopkins for the clippings of Andy Reid's mustache, one share of a State Farm commercial, and the leftover Big Mac from Andy Reid's plate. So decent haul. Oh, and by that I mean a 5th round pick. So how on earth you acquire DeAndre Hopkins for a 5th round pick is impressive. He has not been a great wide receiver for the last couple of years, so it's like, okay, maybe. But then somehow they convinced the Titans to eat half of his salary. That is the part that shocks me. Like, not only are you getting him for literally nothing, but also you're going to pay only half of his salary because you're getting his former team to pay it too. The Chiefs absolutely fleeced in this one, and there's no question about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the 5th round pick is very fair. If you look at some of the other receivers that just got dealt, Devontae Adams, he got dealt for what, a 3rd or a 2nd. Amari Cooper was dealt for a 3rd. I mean, those are top tier receivers. And then DeAndre Hopkins is on the very, very tail end of his career. He hasn't produced to the level of those guys in the last couple of seasons.
To be fair, he's played with.
That's fair. That's very
Kyler
fair.
Murray for a couple of years, who was hurt for most of that time, and then Will Levis for these last couple of years too.
But it's no secret that he's not the same player he was. I mean, he's not the DeAndre Hopkins that was in Houston. He's not the early years Arizona Cardinals DeAndre Hopkins. But yeah, like you said, the big part is the Titans eating the salary cap, eating part of his contract. So I think this definitely helps the Chiefs. I mean, he's not going to be D-Hop of the Texans, but he's going to help this team because right now they're throwing the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster, and and you got to be able to upgrade off of that, and that's what they just did.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously he's probably going to try to slip into that wide receiver 1 role. I wouldn't be surprised if he fell to the wide receiver 2 kind of situation there, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, major upgrade for the Chiefs in their offense because they've been struggling a little bit here. All right, next game we have is the Jets and Steelers. I don't want to spend too much time on this game either. The Steelers score or win 37-15. The Jets are running out of excuses. Obviously, they get Devontae Adams, and that's massive because reuniting with Aaron Rodgers, what they had in Green Bay was special. They're hoping to replicate that here in New York, but this first game back does not feel like it. They only put up 15 points. I can't. How many times can I get the number wrong? But at 15 points, and the Steelers on the other side. Kate and I talked about this a little bit last week. We're like, how do you not start Justin Fields? He's produced so well. What's going on? And they're like, yeah, we're going to roll with Russell Wilson. You're like, okay, Steelers country, let's ride. Or I guess maybe you go Steelers country, let's steal. I guess that makes more sense. And so, let's steal from the Broncos is more like it. So they score 37 points in this game, and better than I thought that they could ever do. 37 points in general, but 37 points with Russell Wilson. Who would have thought that was going to happen? Justin Fields might be out of a job, like in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they were barely hanging on to games, barely squeaking out these wins, and you're like, okay, well, that's just because of the system they have. You know, they're don't make mistakes on offense, go crazy on defense type thing. Clearly not. Clearly, they're a high-powered offense who can score 37 points on you. So Justin Fields might be out of a job.
Yeah, unfortunate because me and you have been a big Justin Fields advocator his whole career, and it's getting harder to do that when he's struggled, like you said, and then they bring in Russell Wilson, and their offense just clicks. In game 1 with Russell Wilson, George Pickens looked like an elite wide receiver. Najee Harris was running the ball much better. Like everything just opened up for this offense. 37 points
against a good Jets defense, mind you.
Yeah. Jets defense is no slouches. I was very impressed, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a little sad because I was rooting for the Justin Fields comeback, but like you said, I don't think we're gonna see that now.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, that's enough on this game. We'll see going into next week how everything shapes up, if the Jets can pull it together, and if this is a one and done for Russell Wilson, or if this is going to continue. The next game that we have here is the Ravens and Buccaneers. This is big game, two high-powered teams. Obviously, Buccaneers are one of the hottest in the NFC. Ravens are one of the hottest in the AFC. Ravens end up coming away with this one 41-31, but it's a lot. The game was a lot further apart than the scoreline shows. A lot of these points for the Buccaneers came in the waning minutes of the game, where it didn't matter too much, or at least you would have thought it didn't matter too much. Storylines of this game are Mike Evans aggravates a hamstring injury that we saw earlier in the season. So he's out until week 11, I believe, or at least that's when he's projected to be back. We'll see how that shapes up. But then bigger than that is, I mean, they were down by 10 points with just minutes to go.
But they were down by more than that with like they made it 10.
Yeah.
It was like 24. Yeah.
Right. I mean, to be fair, like they were mounting a little bit of a comeback. You're like, okay, I can see maybe why you have your starters in, but down that many with as many minutes that are left, it's like, okay, I admire you wanting to go and win this game. I really, really do. But it, like, at the sacrifice of Chris Godwin, who is, I think he's number 2, maybe number 3 in receiving yards. I think he's number 2, actually. Number 2 in receiving yards in the entire NFL. He's still playing in this game, dislocates his ankle.
Disgusting injury.
He's done for the year. He underwent surgery the other day. Like, that is a massive loss for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, and the fact that he was still in, I mean, I understand wanting to mount as big of a comeback as you can, but to a point, you need to get to the point where you're like, all right, let's wave the white flag. Let's take everybody out. Let's not risk an injury. And this is why teams do that, to avoid any injury, let alone one of your superstar players. And now he's out for the season. And you also have Mike Evans gone for 3 weeks. Who are they going to throw the ball to? Jalen McMillan. He's not very good.
Yeah, I mean, this is really unfortunate because the Buccaneers were so hot coming into this week. And now it's going to slow down a lot for the next 3 weeks. And that's not good because they have a little bit of a cushion on the Falcons right now for this, the lead in the NFC South, but not much. So it's going to be rough for the Buccaneers these next couple weeks.
Guess who they play this week? The Falcons.
Yeah. That's big. That's big for the Falcons. They need to come out swinging in this game. All right, let's cover the last game that we have here really, really quick. We have the Chargers and Cardinals. Cardinals won this game 17-15. The only thing I saw from this game was the fact that Kyler Murray had that 44-yard run. Didn't watch it because the NFL decides to put games on stupid streaming services, and I'm not going to pay for that. I'm not advocating for piracy, but sometimes it's necessary.
I agree. Yeah, all I really know is the Chargers didn't score an offensive touchdown. However, Justin Herbert threw for, I believe, 389 yards in this game. But when it all mattered down the stretch, they took a lead with about a minute to go. And in typical Chargers fashion, doesn't matter if Brandon Staley's the head coach, doesn't matter if Jim Harbaugh is the head coach, their defense lets the offense down the field, and the Cardinals kick a game-winning field goal as time expires to win the game. So Cardinals win this one 17-15 in a snooze. So nobody missed anything if they didn't pay the NFL their money for NFL or ESPN Plus. So boo-hoo NFL.
All right, so that's going to do it for our recap. We're going to jump into our predictions for week 8. But before we do that, I need to tell you guys about our friends over at K&F Construction. K&F Construction has been serving the Northeast Ohio community for over 16 years, specializing in composite decks. K&F Construction takes the time and effort to provide the service and product you deserve for your home. You can call K&F Construction today at 330-575-2465 for a free estimate. Again, that's 330-575-2465. You can also visit kfdex.com, which is linked in the description. K&F Construction, let us build your dream backyard. All right, Kadin, let's jump into our pick'ems for this upcoming week. We have a lot of good games coming up.
I have to pull those up on my phone. That's right.
I know. All right, let me know. Oh, actually, while you pull that up, I will let the viewers know. First off, if you don't follow us on Instagram, you wouldn't know this, so make sure that you follow us on Instagram at KA_football. But if you're following us, you know that we have decided on a punishment for the loser of this year's pick'ems. That punishment will be the loser will have to go on a date with a giant stuffed teddy bear to a fancy restaurant. So that should be particularly entertaining. I would assume that, we'll get some cameras on that. We'll make it entertaining. It'll be a good time. So make sure that you're following us on Instagram, YouTube, everything, so you can make sure to catch that at the end of the season. And as a quick update, as I like to give you guys, I have fallen even farther. Kadin has pulled away a little bit more. He's now at 70 correct predictions. I'm at 62. So we are halfway through the season, so there's a lot of time to catch up. But
nope, it's just gonna. It's gonna. This is what happened our first season, Austin. You said it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine, and every week the gap just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
And then I had to spend 12 hours in the Waffle House. But it's okay because you guys spent it there with me to make sure that I actually did it and to make sure we had the footage for it. So, camaraderie. All right. Let's kick things off with our first game here. We have on Thursday Night Football the Vikings and Rams. Kadin, who do you have for this game?
Are we going to do a speed run on this, or are we going to do an analysis?
I would assume we're going to do a speed run on this like we normally do.
Yep, Devi is behind me or in front of me, just saying speed run. So, I got the I got the Vikings.
Okay, I was going to say that's a wild take. But yeah, I got the Vikings too. I think they're going to bounce back after last week's loss. All right, to the 1:00 games on Sunday, we have the Eagles and Bengals. Who do you have here, Caden?
I have the Bengals. This was a hard one.
I had the Bengals too. The Eagles haven't been playing as good of football as I would like at the moment. The Bengals
Debbie is not happy about that pick.
No, he is not.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Yeah, whatever, Debbie. All right. Next game, we have the Ravens and Cleveland. Caden, who you got? This one's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I got the Ravens.
I got the Ravens too. We'll see what Famous Jameis can do. I'm excited to see what happens. Storyline for this game is the Browns defense is going to need to go crazy to stop the Ravens offense. All right, this one is easy too. The Titans and Lions. Who you got?
Yeah, Lions. Not too much question there.
Yep. All right, Colts Texans. How about this one?
Texans.
Yep. This one we'll see. We'll see. I got Green Bay and Jacksonville.
Green Bay.
Yeah, I got Green Bay too. I mean, I was saying maybe it's a good one because the momentum coming out of London. No. All right, here we go. Cardinals Dolphins. Does Tua bounce back and actually produce like we think he might, or is he going to struggle and the Cardinals are going to come away with this one?
I'm gonna go Miami. I think Tua does bounce back.
I agree. I'm going to go the Dolphins on this one. So far, we've agreed on all these, so hopefully I can actually make up some ground here. But yeah, I think it would be wise if he wore the Guardian cap, but I think he'll do just fine. All right, Jets, Patriots.
Jets.
Yeah, you got to go Jets, especially after the pummeling that the Patriots got last week. All right, Falcons, Buccaneers.
I'm gonna go the Falcons because of who the Bucs got on offense.
Yep, I agree, and I hate that I do. All right, here we go. Chargers, New Orleans.
I'm going to go the Chargers.
I'm going Chargers. Caden, you got to pick a different team. We can't keep picking the same ones here. Come on, we got 6 games left. Let's differ some. Bills, Seahawks.
I got... Oh, this was probably the toughest one yet.
Yep.
I'm picking these as we go, so that's what I got to really think here. I'm going to go Buffalo.
I'm going Buffalo as well. This is not good. All right, this one is we're going to agree on this one too. All right, Carolina, Denver.
Yep, Denver.
Yep. Chiefs, Raiders.
Chiefs.
Oh my.
Last team to beat the Chiefs though was the Raiders on Christmas Day last year.
This is true. They're also the last team to beat the Ravens. So they must be a great team, the Raiders are. All right. Chicago and Washington. Who do you have here?
This one is tough.
Mm-hmm.
If Jaden Daniels is playing, I'm picking Washington. If he's not, I'm picking Chicago.
That's what I'm doing too. So
I will change my pick on Sunday morning when this is announced.
For the moment, I'm going Chicago. But
because I don't think Daniels will play.
I don't think so either. All right, let's differ on one of these here. All right, Dallas, San Francisco. Who we got here?
I'm going San Francisco. I know they're injured, but Dallas is lost right now.
There we go. I'm going with the Cowboys.
Wow.
There we go.
That's doing that because you had to be different, or did you actually plan on picking them?
No, I actually plan on picking them. They were already picked on my phone here. I had to do that because of you. All right, then Pittsburgh, New York Giants. Who you got here?
Pittsburgh.
Yep. All right, so best I could do is make up one game this week. That's not great. All right, that does it for our picks. We're going to take a very quick break, and then we'll be back with our segment of the week, this week's Audible. All right, welcome back. This week's segment of the week is our Audible. If you guys don't know how this one works, Kadin and I have selected a team, or I guess it mostly is a team at this point. A team that has made a decision or is currently making a decision, and Caden and I have to decide what we would do for that team, how we would audible their decision makings at the line of scrimmage for the rest of the season or their future in general. So, what do we have for this week?
This week, we are going to be doing an audible for the Dallas Cowboys, a team that we didn't really talk about this week because they had a bye in the past week, but there's a lot of news surrounding the Cowboys. So, should we jump into it? Want to bounce ideas off of each other? Because obviously, they're struggling right now, offensively and defensively. Last year, they were one of the best defensive teams in the NFL, and as well as offense. And this year, their defense is one of the worst, and their offense can't really do anything aside from CeeDee Lamb, who has also struggled. So, what would you say to do offensively or defensively? Take a side.
Ooh. Let's see. I guess I will start on the offense, and we'll address the defense in a second, because the defense does concern me slightly more just because of how good they were last year. But on offense, I'm going to say that for the offense, you need to make a trade. You need to make a move to acquire a player. And I think that the type of player you need to acquire needs to be a running back. I think that that's kind of their biggest glaring hole right now, is the fact that you are trotting out Ezekiel Elliott as a quote unquote viable option as a running back, and he is 8,200 years old, so that's not the greatest move in the world. And I think that like having a more viable option at running back is going to open up the pass game a little bit more. I think at the moment teams kind of know, like, okay, if you run it, it's not too big of a threat, but if you pass it, that's where you're going to get us, because CeeDee Lamb's going to burn us over the top. So I think making a move for a more viable running back would be a good start for the Cowboys at this point in the year.
Yeah. And I think another option is also wide receiver. Their options right now are CeeDee Lamb and then Jalen Tolbert, who's not, he's not bad, but he's not a dominant bona fide wide receiver too. If you look at a lot of teams right now, the Bills just went and acquired Amari Cooper. The Jets just went and acquired Devontae Adams, and now the Chiefs with D-Hop. There's so many players that are available right now. Cooper Kupp is available. Deontay Johnson. So many great wide receivers. Adam Thielen. So many good wide receivers that you can go get for cheap. All these great wide receivers are going for third or fourth round picks. That's not hard. That doesn't cost you much to acquire. Go, and you didn't spend anything this offseason. You have the money, you have the draft picks, you have the assets. Go get a receiver, go get one of those superstars that's available at the trade deadline, as well as go get a running back. Your offense needs much upgrades. And then we can flip it around to the defensive side of the ball. They had Dan Quinn the last 2 years, and he was dominant on the calling the plays for that defense. He obviously left. He's in Washington now, and Washington's amazing. They have Mike Zimmer now as their defensive coordinator. Their defense is not the same. It's struggling. They need to maybe go ahead and maybe not make some big trade, but definitely change their scheme up more similar to what Dan Quinn's was. You're obviously not going to have the same scheme as you had with Dan Quinn. Different coaches have different schemes, but this one is clearly not working with that defense, and Dan Quinn's was. So don't make it the exact same. I know that's not realistic, but make it a little more similar, because this one is clearly not working.
Yeah, because like you said, obviously, I don't think a trade on the defense is really what you need. I mean, that defense is really, really the same as it was last year in terms of personnel. And so going out and acquiring another linebacker, another defensive back, like that's really not going to do too much for you when this defensive unit that's supposed to be insane isn't performing well. So I think what you said with either changing the scheme or changing who calls the plays or anything really, changing anything about what you have on the defense right now is going to be an upgrade.
Yeah. But definitely going to be interesting to see how they play it because they're in a very competitive NFC East with Washington, obviously, and then Philly is always going to be up there and them. So they expect to try to be in the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes and what the next couple weeks look like with the moves they make before the trade deadline.
Yeah. And real quick, obviously, these are the decisions that we would make if we were the GM, if we had any role in the Cowboys organization. But I think that one of the best things that the Cowboys could do that will never happen is replace their GM. I mean, Jerry Jones has not been a great GM for years at this point. For some reason, he keeps trotting out the same team that he has every year. He never makes big trades. He doesn't make big signings.
Hey, Austin, you better stop talking because we're going to get fired by Jerry Jones. I don't know if you saw, but the Cowboys radio, they were dogging on Jerry Jones and they were dogging on the Cowboys. And what does Jerry Jones do? Instead of going and making moves, he fired some radio hosts. Bro has too much of an ego. But so you should stop talking before we get fired by Jerry Jones.
Good news, we don't get paid by Jerry Jones. But if he wanted to pay us...
we don't get paid at all.
If he wanted to pay us, I would not be too mad about that. I'd glaze the Cowboys every day if that's what he wanted.
Very true.
All right. So obviously, if we were the GMs of the Cowboys, we would make a trade for a wide receiver, make a trade for a running back, change what we're doing on defense schematically, or fire Jerry Jones and replace him. But that's not super possible. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode. Make sure that you're following us on all of our platforms on Instagram, K_football, on YouTube, K_A football, so that you can catch everything that we're putting out for you guys. We appreciate you for watching, and we will catch you next week for week 8.